What's up, everybody? This is Matt Shoup with No Code Jiu-Jitsu, and I am joined here by
Rick Scadden.
Rick. Welcome to our Meet the Student Stories show, video, podcast, whatever we want to call it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Love having you here, man. We've got quite the history, quite the story.
We do.
You and I personally share that real quick, and then we'll share the jiu-jitsu part of how that all intermingled.
Yeah, so I came to know you through actually working, man. I started my own paint company here several years back. It's been 6 years, I think, already. And you were the big name in town, had all the benches out there, face was all over the place. And I thought, you know what, why don't I just call this company to see if they're hiring any subcontractors? Mm-hmm. I was kind of not new to the business, but new to the area.
Yes.
And, called you up. Yeah, you said, yeah, come on in for a group interview. So I came in. I guess I was the only one who showed up, which was pretty cool. And I think we just kind of hit it off right off the bat. And, one thing led to another. I started doing some subcontract work for you. And, we kind of got to the end of that year and, we just jived really well together. I loved how you guys did business. I loved how M&E presented themselves in the community. And I responded to one of your Facebook posts online about joining the leadership team at M&E, and I thought just wanted to ask you about it, and we talked about it for several weeks, got to meet the team, and then found out that that's what I wanted to do. So I kind of quit my company and just kind of flowed right into M&E as a project manager, and just kind of been that for the past several years, man. So that's been good.
I vividly remember the day that we started. We had a really crucial conversation, I think, in our relationship, and we were in a neighborhood in South Fort Collins, and we just got our heads chewed off and screamed off and chopped off by a very unreasonable person. Yeah. This lady.
I remember.
And we were in the parking lot, like, holy cow, we're better friends for surviving that, right?
Right.
And you told me, you're like, hey, I want to join the team, but I got to share my story with you. And I think stories are so important. This is why we're doing this and we're getting together. We have our personal story, our professional story, and then we all share this common jiu-jitsu story together as students at the academy. And you've got a crazy story, man. And I know that we're trying to keep these fairly concise, but we can talk about whatever we want here today.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said, hey man, before you hire me, I gotta tell you my story a little bit, man, because I remember you were like, you're a pastor now. That was your ultimate goal. And I'm like, Rick loves Jesus. He's a pastor. Called you Pastor Rick before you were Pastor Rick.
Yeah.
And then, but every little bit you went a little gangsta, little off the rails. And I'm like, wonder what's up with that. So share whatever about that you'd like. And then let's talk about how jiu-jitsu came into your life through you coming into my life.
Yeah, man. So I remember that whole situation very vividly because of that customer and what we just went through, and then asking you about that. And, the first thing on my mind is, because I am a felon, I'm a 4-time felon, and I have a pretty colorful past. And, I wanted to let you know that up front before, we made the deal official, just because, when people hear that story, if they don't meet me first and see how my character is and who I am now, but I just tell them the story right out. It's different, people have their mind made up already of who I am, without knowing really who I am. And so, yeah, man, I had just gotten out of prison a few years prior to that, went into prison in 2005, and got out 2010, just a little bit after that. Kind of grew up in a rough home, rough neighborhood, rough environment, drugs and alcohol. That's what my life was back then. And, growing up, teenager, adolescence and stuff like that, I kind of took on that myself. So I became drug addicted, alcohol, running with gangs, running with the wrong crowd and stuff like that. And lo and behold, I ended up in prison with a 12-year prison sentence for a vehicular homicide. That I got into a drunk driving accident and literally killed somebody. Yep. And so, I had drugs in the car, I had alcohols in the car, I had guns in the car, and they thought that I was some sort of Al Capone or somebody when they came up to the truck or the car. It was a truck to the truck because they found, methamphetamine and stuff like that. And, when all said and was done, they gave me a 12-year prison sentence, and I was in prison since then. And turned my life around, gave my life to Christ, and started living for the Lord. Came out and just knew that I had to get involved and plugged into a community right away. Started going to church outside the prison walls, found a group of people, met my wife, got married. When I asked you that question and told you that, I was still on parole. So that's why I was kind of freaking out a little bit, because they still had a little tether on me. And, so yeah, I was still on parole. I didn't get off of parole until 2016. And so,
Yes.
that was only a few years back. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's kind of my story. That's kind of how, we came in contact with each other, and why we're here today.
So obviously I didn't meet the old Rick. I think if old Matt would have met the old Rick, I don't know what would have happened, man. Um, I don't know. We can make our best assumptions and
Yeah,
wild
yeah, yeah.
guesses. But I meet this new Rick, this Rick that's transitioned, and you've totally turned your life around, so it's like you're now a full-time pastor at a church. Your
Yeah,
goal coming
absolutely.
onto the leadership team at our painting company was to work your way up to being a pastor. We supported that. I watched your first sermon, man. um,
Awesome.
yeah, the last sermon you did last weekend was way better than your first sermon. Can I tell you that?
Oh, absolutely.
We drove to Nebraska on Easter to see that. That was cool.
Yeah.
So as you're having all these changes, our academy exists, right, to improve and protect the lives of others in the community.
Yeah.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, obviously, right? It allows you to defend yourself if somebody attacks you, roll around on the ground. We can talk about all that, but it makes your life better. And I think that's just as important, if not maybe equally or maybe more so important than the physical being able to defend yourself
Oh, yeah.
and your family. So at what point, I don't quite recall how I introduced you. I try to introduce everybody to jiu-jitsu, obviously, but talk about that. How did jiu-jitsu overlay into this transition that you had come through, that you were going through? And let's talk now about that.
Yeah. So I remember, man, when you first introduced that to me, it was at a time when we had just met. I mean, it was probably a year and a half after we met, after, I was working, out on the leadership team and stuff like that. And I was just in a rough time where I was looking for something else. My daily grind of going to the gym and doing what I was doing was just not working out. And you said, "Oh, you should come in and try jujitsu." And I had my fears, I had my doubts, because confrontation to me has always been something that I struggled with. In times past, confrontation to me was with a gun. And I didn't have to get close to you. I didn't have to do fists. I didn't have to do anything. I had that, and that was it. And that was my confrontation. So when you talk about man-to-man confrontation, that's a whole different deal. And
This is
so
personal. It's a very intimate confrontation. Jiu-jitsu is.
yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was. I was, I was a little taken back by it a little bit, and so I said, okay, let's go do it. And I showed up, man, did my first class, and kind of really just fell in love. The I don't want to call it fear, but the nervousness is still always there when you go get ready to roll with somebody, because you don't know who they are and how, where they come from and stuff like that. But once you start to get past that, it really does vein into every aspect of your life, and confrontation is a part of life.
Yeah.
And so once I learned that in jiu-jitsu, I was able to start to apply that to my everyday life, everyday situations, with talking with people, with dealing with confrontation, either with my wife or my kids, or however that is. So it really does play into everyday life situations and scenarios when you apply yourself to that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean that we spent a lot of time working together. I mean, we talk about the confrontation that we would run into with teams and clients and vendors. And I remember having those discussions, and I've absolutely seen you grow through that. So when we made the transition to start training in my basement, right? You were one of our first original students. You were coming over during day class, training in the basement. We opened the academy right at the beginning of 2019.
Right.
I remember kind of from your introductory class, you were training pretty consistently. You stopped weight training, then you stopped eating meat, and then you started eating all vegetables. And then you tried to convert our whole company to that. I tried that for like
Yeah.
2 hours, and then that's our going thing. And then you took a little break, And then you really picked your jujitsu journey back up when we opened our academy. So talk about that. You just got your blue belt, you know, just a
Yeah.
couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And how was that for you as an accomplishment? I'd ask you that, and then I'd ask you what would you tell a brand new white belt that's so excited about getting their blue belt, because we focus on that. I want my blue belt, or I want my promotion.
Yeah.
What would blue belt Rick tell white belt Rick right now?
Uh, Blue belt Rick would tell white belt Rick to be consistent and to remain calm. You know, my first class and I got that first belt, you know, was just like the whole world being open to me. It motivated me. I wanted to get in and train all the time, but you know how life goes. Life happens. You know, kids come into the picture, jobs come into the picture. You know, here I am working a full-time pastor, full-time, you know, project manager at M&E, and you know, stuff that should be, you know, placed in the front kind of gets pushed to the side. So that's kind of how my journey is. I should have got my blue belt quite a while ago, you know, but there was that 2-year hiatus in between the other school and when you opened up your school. But coming into your school, man, I was so excited. One, to start a new chapter in jujitsu with somebody that I love, somebody that I respect. But also two, because when you do start out being a white belt, your goal is to get to that blue belt. And man, it looks like it's so far away, you know, and you're just like, how will I ever accomplish getting a blue belt? You know, you look at black belts and you're like, man, that is never, you say to yourself, that is never accomplishable. You know, 7, 8, 10 years. Are you kidding me? I'm only on my first class. But you know, when I came back to when we started the new academy, and I told you, I said, man, I want to get my blue belt. And you know, so I started coming in more consistent. I was training more, you know, throughout the week. And you know, I started to stuff that I thought I forgot, you know, was starting to come back rapidly. I was starting to remember. I was starting to have fun again. I was starting to realize that, man, why did I ever put this thing down for that long?
Yeah.
So yeah, blue belt Rick, you know, white belt Rick, just be calm, be consistent, and don't try to kill everybody on the first roll. You know.
I know, I love it. And for those of you that don't know, because we may have new students, right? We're having jujitsu language, and assuming somebody might be watching this and they say, what's jujitsu, right? What's a blue belt? What's a white belt? So everybody starts as a white belt. Your first class, it's your most important class. We talk about that. You know, you get out there, you step on the mats. I got beat up pretty severely. You got beat up pretty severely.
Yeah.
We have a different style at our academy in terms of how we introduce somebody to jujitsu. But what blue belt is the first promotion. It's that new belt, and that doesn't happen in 3 weeks or 3 months like some other martial arts. It is a grind. It is a grind, and it takes a lot of work, and a lot of people quit before getting to blue belt. Then you go to purple, to brown, to black, and then at black, you've everybody that gets their black says they feel like they're just re-beginning again, and then there's even more after that. But yeah, it was really cool to have your family there when that happened that night.
Yeah.
We had kind of planned that because we knew you were ready. And Lacey and the girls walk in, and I don't know if you remember, I just threw you with everybody, and I was like,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
go,
Yeah.
how's this guy looking? How's this guy doing? You know, and you had no idea.
I had no clue, man. And I didn't realize, because I'm like, I thought we were rolling light and everybody's over here just tearing me up, man. And I'm like, geez, is this how it's going to be? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was just a normal class. And you know, that meant so much to me, man, as a person to have that sort of a surprise party, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
And to have the people that I love all there to watch that, man, that meant a lot to me. And that was an accomplishment, you know, 4 years in the making. And so,
Yep.
you know, it's been a journey, man. And you know, one that I would say to the new white belts, you know, don't give up. Keep on pressing, keep on pursuing. Yes, you're going to earn those stripes. You're going to earn those stripes with blood, sweat, and tears. But you know, at the end of the day, it's an accomplishment, and when you meet that accomplishment, you feel this sense of fulfillment inside of you, and it just gives you fuel to your fire that you can just, you know, vein into the every other area sector of your life. So
I love it. I love it. Well, hey,
yeah, man.
we're gonna wrap it up real soon. So you've kind of already answered some of the questions, but I have 4 questions at the end. And before we get into those, just anything else that you want to share about your story, about how jujitsu's impacted your life? I know your twin daughters, right? Sadie and
Yeah.
Amariah. Talk about them. They came in and they didn't want to get on the mats. They watched and they ran out the door and they didn't want to do it for a while. Talk about what you've seen as a parent for your twin girls.
Yeah, I think for them, just getting them involved early because they're 6 years old now and they're in school, and they come home and start talking about the boys, pushing them on the playground and stuff like that. So I thought, what, let's get them a little bit of self-defense training. Let's get them comfortable with confrontation. Let's get them comfortable in situations that are uncomfortable. And so bringing them in that first class, they were terrified, man. They did not want to get on the mats. They were crying. And but I got out there with them. They started having fun, and then the next time they were better and better and better. And then just finally here a few weeks ago, before we shut down, they were able to get on the mats without me on the mat because I was sick, which was actually kind of cool because I think that was probably their best class that they had without me on there. So yeah, I think it's great for kids, man. It's great for the youngins to get them involved, with bullying nowadays in schools. You never know what's going to happen. And, what jujitsu does is it teaches kids, basic self-defense techniques to stop these bullies, to stop, when they're getting attacked, to how to block a punch, a kick, or whatever it is, and to really get out of nasty situations. So yeah, I'd recommend it for all kids.
Yeah, they're killing it, man. It's so cool to have them there and see just their growth and their journey and their potential. And I love it, man. All right,
Yeah.
you ready to hit the 4 questions? Oh, you just went on mute. What happened? You there? Can you hear me? We are going to hit these 4 questions, but I cannot hear you right now.
Can you hear me now?
There we are. Yes, awesome.
Yep.
Give me just a second to make sure we're dealing with a good connection. All right, here we go. You already kind of answered them, but what would you tell a new student thinking about joining or trying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the first time that you haven't already shared with them? Because you've shared a lot of nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say do it. You have to get over the fear of stepping onto the mat. I think that's the first step is to step onto the mat. Once you step onto the mat and you get over that fear, you're going to find that after your first class, you're going to fall in love with it. It's going to be something that you're going to want to do and continue, down the road. So yeah, the first step is to get onto the mat. So get over the fear of just stepping out there and putting yourself out there.
I love it. Tell me what else blue belt Rick would tell white belt Rick that you haven't already shared.
Blue belt Rick would tell white belt Rick to not kill everybody on the mat. Because my instinct, when you're in, when you come from where I came from, and anytime we had confrontation, it was, fight, to the death, right? Like you're trying to survive. And so I brought that mentality into jujitsu. So anytime I rolled with one of my partners or somebody, that we were just sparring with, practicing with, so to speak, I was going 120 mile an hour. And, when you do that, you get hurt. You hurt your partner and you hurt yourself. And I walked out of there a lot of nights with a kink neck, a hurt rib, a hurt shoulder, a hurt elbow. And, I would just say, man, slow down. Don't try to kill everybody on your first set, and respect your partner.
I love it, man. That is so true. And yeah, I really love that. We would walk into the office. I remember because what was I purple when was I purple?
Yeah.
You started something like that. And we'd walk into the office at M&E, just, Rick's limping, I'm limping. Like what just happened? They're like, part of the fight club. What's going on?
Can't bend my arm. Yeah.
What is your favorite submission?
So my favorite submission would have to be the key lock, man. I always find myself in that position, and it's whether you're oompa somebody off of you, or you're transitioning to the top somehow, taking mount or something like that. I always end up in a position where I can grab an arm and get my arms locked up in there. And I found for me that is the easiest thing for me to naturally think about when I'm in that position. So yeah, I love it, man. I love it.
Catch a lot of those. Yeah, I see you catch a lot of those. I love it. Here's the last question. I think this is such an important one for the times that we're in. We're all in quarantine and lockdown. We cannot physically train right now. So what are you working on right now to improve your jiu-jitsu in whatever aspect it is, knowing that you can't come into the gym and physically train right now?
Yeah. So what I love how we have the videos online now, because now me and my daughters can get our gis on, right? We can, push the couches to the side or whatever, and we can start working on it together. Even if you're a parent and you don't know any jujitsu, by watching the videos, you can definitely, see the technique and, teach your kid, or be their sparring partner, however it is. So yeah, and that's the best time during this lockdown, man. It's just getting the couches out of the way, getting the kids on the living room. I mean, they love to wrestle as it is, so you just add a little bit of that jujitsu in there, and just have fun, man. And so that's kind of what we've been doing, little workouts here and there, being disciplined with eating and yeah, stuff like that, man. So
You eating burgers again?
you know what? For the past, I would say week, not this past week, the week prior to that, when we first went on lockdown, it was no holds bar, eat whatever you want, nasty food, sweets, all this. And then I thought, we're going to be on this for a little while longer. It's probably not the best idea to eat cookies and hamburgers and zoom zooms and wham whams every day. Because you're going to, get back on the mat after that diet is going to be hellacious, man. So
love it, man. I always enjoy spending time with you. You know that you're a great friend of mine. We'd love having you at the Academy, but thanks for taking the time, man, to jump on and talk to new students, current students, and get to know our crew and our team and our Academy a little bit more. So we're gonna sign off here. Rick, thank you so much, and we'll see everybody soon.
All right, man. Bye.